give you Alan. Thank you very much.
Hey guys. So today I want to jump into a talk, and what I want to talk about is the lack of movement that you have after a Meteor tutorial. But before I get into the talk, I want to give you guys an opportunity to get to know me and see what I represent. So my name is Alan. It's actually French, so if you're going to butcher it, just call me Alan. And I represent a meetup that basically teaches people who want to learn how to code the ability to code. So what we do is that we get someone like one of you guys who are actually developers, and we sit them in front of a podium, and we get a number of students and basically give them the opportunity to see what our craft is like. So it's really nice if we get someone from advertising or someone who's in marketing to basically come in and see, oh, what is it like programming Meteor today? And I've been running this meetup for about a year and a half. And I'm always getting approached by other developers basically wanting to teach new languages. But recently, I was approached by a developer named Anders, who's right there if anyone wants to see him. And he actually convinced me on the power of Meteor and the beauty of it. So I was instantly convinced within 5 minutes of meeting him that I definitely want him to teach. And I want to actually use this language. So we set that class up. This is actually him. Set that class up. And it actually did really well. 140 people registered for the class, and I think about 100 came. And it went fantastic, and everyone really learned something. But me currently at that time, I didn't have any time to actually learn it for myself. I had too many things going on with work. So recently, about 3 weeks ago, I had a break in time, and I decided to actually get the opportunity to learn Meteor, and it was fantastic. But there was one small thing. After the tutorial, I was kind of a little bit on my own. At least at the time, there weren't that many extra resources that I knew about. So I had to basically fend for myself. And I wanted to give an opportunity and show you guys what I had to do, so maybe if you're in that same position, you know where to go in the future. And the number one thing in picking up any language or any framework, Meteor or anything, is that you must be a builder. You actually have to build things. And you kind of have to have a project in mind. So have a project in mind that can lead you forward. Otherwise, it's just theory. And this is the number one thing in all of programming. And I know I'm preaching to the choir right now. But one of the first things that I learned, and the first thing that helps me, is to not get too into the fad right now. And I found that if I stick with Blaze, so Blaze is the front-end framework that comes pre-packaged with Meteor. If I stick with Blaze, I will actually learn faster. So Meteor gives you the option of using Blaze, which it comes with, or React or Angular. And I found that Blaze is very simply written, and because of that, it allowed me to learn, okay, how do the back-end parts of this move first before I bite off more than I can chew. So, and also, the Meteor documentation assumes that you're using Blaze. So it would make sense for people who are learning to just stick out with Blaze, just for the beginning, at least for your first application or two. Now, the go-to router, so the routing system, how you get from page to page in your application, is the iron router for Blaze, at least, at the time that I was learning. And Blaze, Iron Router's documentation is phenomenal. React's documentation is not so good, but the Iron Router one is phenomenal. So because of that, it allowed me to learn, okay, how does Meteor dealing with different pages in a proper fashion? So it allowed me to learn the whole scope of it. And also, Iron Router is both server and client side, so it makes a good reference point to the things that I've known before. And before learning Meteor, I was actually a Ruby on Rails developer by trade. And it provided a number of interesting points. One is that in Rails, we have a set file structure that you cannot break. It's convention over configuration. So this file has to be in this location, it has to be named this exact thing. But when I got to Meteor, I kind of got lost. I was like, well, what naming convention should I use? So very foolishly, I decided that I was going to attempt to build the Ruby on Rails structure inside of my Meteor application, much to no avail. But there actually is a preferred structure, and just spending a minute or two reading the preferred structure of a Meteor application could actually help you out in the future. It might not help you out now, but if you ever had a question later on about how your assets load, what's the load order, so on and so forth, this would hedge your bet. This would help you for the future. Now, if you want to see the preferred example, you could go to the beginning or the top of the Meteor documentation, and it has it. Also, there is an opinionated app architecture called Mantra that you should definitely check out. So if you want to see it, I didn't know about this when I was building the talk, but Alain went ahead and showed me about Mantra. So it's really awesome. You guys should check it out. And the next thing is that you can't quite build a Meteor application without knowing MongoDB. So I came from Ruby on Rails, and I know SQL. And it's completely different. And if you attempt to build your NoSQL database, like an SQL database, you're just going to piss a lot of people off, and it's not going to work out so hot. And really, you're going to be losing because it's going to be extremely, extremely slow. So you can't really get that far. So I highly recommend their documentation. It's good, but for me, what I needed is more of how things should be built. I can get the syntax of how to add something to a collection, but it's more so I needed the theory behind it. So the documentation didn't quite help me in that regard. So instead, I purchased the MongoDB book, this book right here. I posted on Instagram, I got 595 likes. That's how good MongoDB is, right? So once I had that, it helped me answer, the theory, the one-off questions that I had, and basically gave me the general knowledge to sort of move forward. Because the way that I'm learning is that I'm learning by building something. So I'll skip learning particular things if I can. So the next thing that I noticed is that I had to move to React eventually. And the reason why is because I was building a chat system, much like a Google Chat. So a chat system that stays open but has the check mark or red status. So if I was talking to you and you sent the message while the box is still open, and I can see it, it should appear with a check mark. But this proved to be extremely difficult in Blaze, and I had to do so much soup and run around in my JavaScript. But I found that in React, it's so much easier. And React, React is perfect for that case. But initially, when I looked at React, I cringed because the JavaScript and the HTML all in one. What's JSX? And from there, I said, okay, well, I'm going to go to their documentation. Well, Facebook documentation isn't the best documentation in the world, so the documentation was a no-go. So after the documentation, I purchased a book on React, and that didn't work out either. So what I had to do was by sheer force of will, trial and error, the old school way of doing things, and I basically scoured Stack Overflow to find one-off solutions to slowly one-up it. So there isn't really, I didn't find a particular way that was good to learning React. But really, after I had some knowledge, React is rather simple. It's not dense like how Angular is. It's really just a couple of one-off gotchas, like this, I didn't know this one particular rule or this one particular rule. And after that, you sort of get a momentum, and then you could actually go on and move forward and build things. So the next thing that I wanted to point out is to use Debugger excessively. And I know I'm totally preaching to a choir because most of you guys are programmers, but you kind of have to see how information gets passed in a Meteor documentation, in a Meteor application. So definitely use Debugger excessively. Also, post a lot of your questions on Stack Overflow, but Stack Overflow isn't great right now for the Meteor community. I came from Ruby on Rails, so I'm used to putting a question up on there and it's solved, but in Meteor, not so much. But instead, what you guys have is that you guys have the Meteor form, which is awesome. The questions are the answers are fantastic, they're spot on. So I highly recommend that. And so basically today, I touched on file structure, learning MongoDB, some resources, and to try to convince you guys to stick with Blaze as much as possible. But a little self-promotion right here. I run the meetup called Beginner Programmers. It's beginnerprogrammers.nyc. And we're actually going to have a Meteor class coming up soon. It's just going to be an intro to Meteor, and maybe even a workshop after a talk by Anders in the VIP section of the room right over there. So if you guys are ever interested in taking any of the courses, or even actually teaching a class, definitely send me an email or talk to me in the back. I'll probably be eating empanadas. Thank you, guys. Questions? Yes.
Is this presentation linked somewhere?
I can link it somewhere. Yes. We'll put it online.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
And this whole talk is going to be it's video, so it'll be available at MDG's Meteor website in about a month.
You mentioned that for your chat application, Blaze, what you found that Blaze wasn't the best for it.
Yeah.
Is there any specifics on why?
It's because from the time that I was doing it, I found no way to stop the reactivity of it. So basically, all of the Blaze data that, from my understanding, was completely reactive. But I wanted to basically take note of when something changes in the data. So I did that with React much easier. The way I had to do it with Blaze was very roundabout, and it wasn't that good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Did you stick with Iron Rider when you moved to React?
Good question. No, I didn't. I moved over to Flow Router and Flow Router Layout. Yeah.
That may have something to do also with controlling reactivity. Flow Router, you can control it much better than Iron Rider. It's like just that pumps you full of data.
Oh, cool. That could be it. Thanks. Yes.
Hey, I heard about this thing called the guide. What is that?
So the Meteor guide is the Meteor guide is a newer, opinionated, basically walkthrough of how you should go about building your application. So they go over things like how you should set up your database, so on and so forth. So you can definitely check that out at Meteor Guide. Yes.
Have you used Mantra yet?
Nope, not yet. Not yet.
There's a question in the back.
Yeah, so what kind of text editor do you use?
Oh, me, I just use Sublime. Yeah, I only ever use Sublime. Yes. No, only Sublime. I should get to using some other one eventually. I just know all the shortcuts for Sublime, that's why.
Alan should probably repeat the questions with him because we don't know if it's going to get recorded.
Okay.
I should have said that before.
Any other questions?
Well,
Oh, thanks.
Alan, thank you so much.